Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be doing a full face of Cle De Peau makeup. I had a huge big PR package from Cle De Peau recently. I also have a lot of Cle De Peau already in my collection because I just love the brand, especially their foundations. So I thought, why not? It's an expensive brand. People need to know what the products look like, how they work on the skin, so that you can really put thought into whether you want to purchase them or not, because they do have some high price points. I was also blessed with a huge, very generous PR package of BK Beauty brushes a few days ago, so I immediately had to try these out, of course. So I'm going to be using all BK Beauty brushes today along with these Cle De Peau products. So without further ado, let's get started. So one of the newest to me items are these two eyeshadow palettes that they sent across, like one 4-pan and a duo. The duo is the most stunning, like silvery blues, and then this quad is just like the perfect blues. Stunning. So I'm gonna like try and use a bit of both of these. I'm gonna start off with this shade here as a bit of a sort of transition shade initially. I've prepped my eyes today with the Urban Decay primer, which I'm actually getting on. Like the best I've ever got on with an eyeshadow primer versus like concealer set with powder. I don't mind it. I don't know that I like it as much as concealer set with powder, but it's, you know, it's progress. We're getting there. We're using a primer, so Robert is proud. I don't want to do like too smoky an eye today because we've got a little tea party at the school at the end of the day today. A little tea cake party just to sort of celebrate the kids' first week back. So I don't want to like rock up looking like a maniac, you know. So I'm just going to use the matte out of this quad, and then I'm desperate to get into these like smoky shades. I mean, so I'm going to start off with the darker of the two. I'm going to try, as I said, and make this like not too smoky an eye, given I'm going to school and then gymnastics. slightly overdressed eyes, you know, but what's new? But the matte blended nicely, had a nice amount of pigment, but you know, for that colour story, it was a nice kind of shade. This one is going on beautifully. Definitely coming up darker on my eyes than I think it looked in the pan. So that's a little surprise for me, I guess. Never tried Cle De Peau eyeshadows before this day. This is the very first time I'm trying these eyeshadows, and so far, so good. But the proof is, of course, in like the shimmers, isn't it? This shade actually looks like almost more of a satin. Let's see, oh, that is pretty. Oh, I do like these shades. It reminds me a little bit of like my Natasha Denona 5-pan that's sold out everywhere, that I love. Those sort of smoky grey tones, they're kind of hard to find, you know. But this is perfect because I feel like this is a classy, it's not super like shimmery and sparkly. So although it's a very smoky colour story, it's also making it more wearable because it's not like super shimmery. It's more of a like a satin, this shade. These eye brushes from the Angie set are so good for like hooded eyes. They're all a bit sort of tapered and narrow. It just really helps to get in the crease, I find. Really nice little set. So I am actually going to use this blue out of here because this just looks a bit more of a shimmer to me, and I just want to see. Oh, that's pretty. Pretty. But again, still quite sophisticated and understated as far as like shimmer goes. I mean, it's no Chanel. It still has, you know, some effect there, but it's also not, you know, Pat McGrath either. It's a sort of sophisticated, but there is some shimmer, some impact. So one of the few items I don't have from Cle De Peau is mascara, so I just used a coat of my Bite Beauty. But yeah, so far, first experience of Cle De Peau eyeshadows is nice. Sort of sophisticated and refined, but still with impact. Like, we're not lacking pigment or anything, but they're also not sparkly. There's like no fallout, and it's given me a really pretty look. The colour stories of both those palettes I really appreciate because they are a bit unique, but it's still kind of sophisticated and elegant. So next up I'm going to try this primer, which I have used a couple of times and I really like. It reminds me, if you're looking for like a, oh, everything smells beautiful as well. It reminds me of a sort of lotion. It's looking for a comparison. I'm thinking it's kind of, you know, it's got that milky sort of consistency. It's not like the Tatcha liquid, it's much thinner than that. And it is hydrating, it's got SPF in it, and it's one of those sort of hydrating, fresh, healthy, protective primers. It gives this gorgeous like glow and luminosity to the skin, but it just feels really nice and hydrating. It goes on like a lotion, like I said, but it does sink in and give you a bit of tack, which is what you want when going in with foundation. So my favorite foundation from the brand, you guys already know, my Cle De Peau Radiant Fluid Foundation Natural. It's such a beautiful foundation. I absolutely love this one. This isn't a foundation that's new to me. I have had this a long time and I've loved it for a long time. Definitely one of my absolute favorite foundations. It has such good coverage with such a small amount. And I really like Cle De Peau's undertones as well. I feel like they have a nice shade range, nice number of shades, but a nice number of undertones especially, and just really natural undertones as well, which I really appreciate. I never struggle to like find my shade, my undertone in Cle De Peau foundations, but this one is the pick of the bunch for me. Although I like all of their foundations, their cream foundation is gorgeous, even their matte foundation, although I don't like matte foundations typically, that is a nice one, a nice amount of coverage. They wear well, they just have beautiful finishes, and I also just find them like super flattering on the skin as well, just so beautiful. And again, they have that stunning like signature Cle De Peau scent, which I really like. It smells like sweeties. I don't know what sweeties, but some type of sweeties. This foundation brush is lovely as well. This is number 101 from BK Beauty, and it's doing a great job, a very quick application. So obviously this foundation will dry down a little, but it does keep this gorgeous level of like luminosity to the skin that just looks like fresh, healthy skin. Another product that's not new to me that I really enjoy is their concealer. This is a stick like cream concealer. Again, great colours. For me, really convenient to use on the go and for touch-ups because of that like stick component, easy to like pop in your handbag if you're on the go, and it has really nice like natural coverage, but good coverage, if you know what I mean. Like it's not going to leave you uncovered, it's not going to leave your dark circles showing through by any means, but it also has like a really natural quality to it and like finish that sits beautifully on the skin, blends really beautifully, and is really flattering. The concealer creases a little on me throughout the day if I'm not very careful, but it's a very minimal amount that is also quite easy to tap away. Blends in beautifully. This is such a good concealer brush. This is the A506 from Angie's set. Really great shape. Fantastic brush. Concealer looks so nice, like nicer than I actually remember it. One of the products I haven't used a lot is their powder. This is their translucent powder. I have used this all over the face before, but I've never used this like to set concealer. I will say it has one of the best packagings of loose powder I've ever seen. You've got this gorgeous little puff in there that lifts out, and you see how like that tidy that is, how it's not leaking out everywhere. It's got a little net that you kind of press your brush into, and it just doesn't make too much come out. This is the reason I don't use this so much, is because this is quite a, well, it is a mattifying powder. So for me, as an all over powder, it's like too mattifying. Like you guys know, I'm never trying to mattify anything ever. apart from maybe the schnoz. But it's so finely milled, really, really light, finely milled powder. I feel like this might be nice under the eyes, you know, because it just literally feels like nothing. It's so light, so finely milled that I think this might do well under the eyes. I mean, it's definitely not sort of drying me out or aging under there, which is nice. That's looking nice and smooth. Actually, should have tried this sooner. So I can't seem to find bronzes. I don't think Cle De Peau have bronzes, which is a travesty. So we're going to move on instead to highlight, and I have one of their new luminizers. This is in the shade 17, which you can probably tell is like extremely light for me, for my skin tone, but it's the one that we have. So we're just going to use it lightly and carefully today. These are so subtle and pretty. Can you see how beautiful that is? Obviously much too light for me, so it is going to leave like a sort of cast, but if you had a fairer skin tone it wouldn't do that for you, but it's still going to be very pretty. Such a pretty glow though. So yeah, I'm going to need to pick this up in a darker shade for me, I think, but I think we can kind of, you know, we can work with that once I add my blush, which is one of the products that I purchased myself. So this is one of their duos. This is shade 4. So as you can see, it's obviously the peachy duo. What did you expect? And I'm going to mix them together. They have like 2 different colours, obviously a sort of lighter and a darker shade. I'm going to mix these together. I'm just going to start pressing this in and trying to like blend this with that highlight to sort of counter where it's a little light for me. That's why it's great to do like highlight first, because you can blend your bronzer and highlight together like with your blush. This is very, very subtle and pretty. Like I'm building this up a lot, like I'm really getting this brush in there and building this up using a heavy hand, because it's quite soft, subtle and pretty on me, but a much lighter fragrance in this than I was expecting actually, a bit less noticeable than some of the products. The fragrance in the blush, that has helped the highlight sort of melt into the skin a little bit and just giving me a bit more of a natural glow so that the colour isn't sitting on my skin tone a bit more noticeably anymore. Perfect. Such a pretty, like fresh little flush of colour there. Now the lip products, again, was something I hadn't tried before I was gifted this big box of products, and I was so glad that they had this lipstick in particular in here because it's gorgeous. And this is one of their brilliant lipstick shine shades in the shade 215. It's so pretty. Look at that. Such a pretty shade, and it's right up my street, this formula. Super comfortable, got that gorgeous amount of shine that I like, but it's just got that pop of colour as well. It feels so nice on the lips, and like that I can still feel the hydration from that primer. Like underneath my foundation, my face feels so light and like hydrated and fresh, which really, really is a beautiful effect from the primer, because I don't think this foundation typically feels like that if I use it with my other primers that I typically use. I'm definitely feeling a bit more of that hydrated skin effect from the primer. So here you have the finished look with an almost full face bar the mascara of Cle De Peau. Let's have a little close up on the peepers. Okay, so let's have a little run through of the products that I tried today. So eyeshadows, I was pleasantly surprised. I really think I expected them not to be pigmented enough. I thought they'd be along the lines of like Chanel eyeshadows, where it's really quite understated and very, very soft, and it does have like an elegant understated quality to it, but the pigment is not missing. The pigment is not lacking so much as I often find that it is in like Chanel eyeshadows. The pigment is there, particularly in the mattes. It just doesn't have, they don't have like a really over the top like shimmer formula. There's a more sort of softer, more quiet shimmer and gradient effect between like the mattes and the shinier sort of more satin shades, which gives you beautiful color story, very elegant, very eye-catching, but in a more mature way. I feel like it's grown up eyeshadow, you know, very easy to work with, everything blended and applied beautifully. And I really like the look that I came out with. And I think that colour story, especially in both of those palettes that I used today, is one that you don't see that often and is really nicely done. So those were a hit for me. The primer is really nice. I typically don't go for primers with SPF in it on a daily basis. I usually use these for like travel, or I'll use them on their own as a bit of a sort of boost to your skin and some extra SPF on top of just your standalone SPF. This one feels so nice and hydrating. I again typically go for like more smoothing primers as opposed to a hydrating primer, but I think this one will be really, really nice on drier skin and more mature skin because it does feel light. It's got that lovely lotion quality, that sort of more hydrating, moisturizing feeling that's very thin, soaks in beautifully and gives you a bit of glow, but it just really makes my skin feel fresher than it typically does with foundation on, which I really liked. You guys already know how I feel about this foundation. I love it. It's one of my all-time favorites. I think it's beautiful, very flattering, very natural, fresh, healthy, glowing skin. One of my favorite foundations ever, and yeah, that was no surprise. You already knew that. This concealer is a very nice one, except the fact that it does slightly crease on me. I really like the coverage. I like how creamy it is, how natural, and how it goes on really easily and blends out really nicely, and you use such a small amount, and it's so convenient, especially for touch-ups in this little component, but it does crease ever so slightly on me, which is why I typically prefer a couple of my other concealers to this one. I'd say it's top 5, but it's not my ultimate favorite concealer because it does crease more than my Pat McGrath or the Huda, but a very nice high coverage concealer. And obviously you can like tap out the couple of little creases that pop up. It's certainly not bad. It's certainly not one of the worst I've ever experienced for concealers that crease, but it's just teensy little bit settled in my lines there. So something to think about. The highlight, I wish I had another shade because obviously the shade is so light for me. Like if you see it on my hand, like that's just obviously going to leave a bit of a noticeable cast, which is a little bit distracting because actually the finish of this really just looks so pretty and luminous, but no matter how sort of light-handed I am with it, it just leaves a cast and colour on my skin, which throws me off a little bit, but it's so pretty, isn't it? So pretty. I really like the finish of it, and it is very sheer as well, which is lucky as this is lighter or I wouldn't be able to use it at all. But yeah, I definitely need to try a different shade because it's such a pretty formula, but just much too light for my skin tone. The blushes are just so pretty. Again, very, very soft, understated and subtle. So perfect for me as I'm very heavy-handed with blush. So when I want something a bit more subtle, I know that I can go in heavy-handed with this blush and it's never going to be too much. A beautiful finish. Very, very natural on the skin. It's not giving me glowing cheeks, but it's also not flat matte either. It's like a satin, very natural, just melts into the skin. Doesn't look like you're wearing blush. It's just a little flush of colour that's just very, very natural and understated, very pretty, very sophisticated. One of like my favorite products, I think, that I've tried. I purchased the blushes myself and I was really, really happy with them. I do wish they would make more shades, and also a lot of these are sold out. I wonder if they're reformulating or something, or they're just due a restock. I hope so because we need more. Then finally, this lipstick is such a hit for me. I was so happy when I pulled this out of my PR package and saw the shade of it because I knew it was going to be right up my street. And I don't know I even knew about these lipsticks. The component is stunning. This is like the perfect sort of spring summer shade. So I was slightly late to that party, but I love this colour. It's so pretty and just such a me shade. So I was really excited to try this formula. A really nice one, actually. Very buildable, very balmy, very comfortable on the lips, just right up my street. All the things I like to find in lipsticks. Oh, and I nearly forgot the powder, you know. I'm actually really surprised by this because this is really quite a matte powder, so not typically up my street. And I was actually really nervous about putting this under my eyes today because I've never done that before. I've tried it sort of all over the face and it's just too matte for my preference when it comes to you know, a setting powder. I don't typically use them at all, but when I do, I want a really glowy one. So a matte like all over powder is not something that I ever do, but I wanted to try this to set concealer today. I'm really shocked. One, it's so light and finely milled that I can't see or feel it under my eyes, and I didn't really notice anything other than a slight mattifying under there. And I'm definitely going to start trying this with some other concealers because obviously I know that this one slightly creases on me, but I really want to try this with my sort of favourite concealers, my Pat McGrath and my Huda, and see how I like it, because I'm impressed at how it's sort of mattified like my nose and like the sides of my nose where I get a bit shiny, and it hasn't caused me any problems under my eyes. It doesn't look heavy, it doesn't look like it's increasing the appearance of my lines and wrinkles. It doesn't feel dry, it doesn't feel heavy. So watch this space. I'm going to report back on this one once I've tried it with some other concealers. I'm pleasantly surprised by how it feels and looks under the eyes. So watch this space. So as far as the BK Beauty brushes, I didn't get to use all of them today, but I did use a fair few. The eyeshadow brushes I love. They all have, these are all the eyeshadow brushes, by the way, are from the Angie collab, the Angie Hot and Flashy collab that she did with BK Beauty. I love, this is the A503. It has like a real sort of tapered, rounded edge to it, which is amazing for getting into like the hooded eyes. These brushes are perfect for people with hooded eyes. I love all the shapes. I also used the A507 for my blush. Loved that. The foundation brush is exactly as good as everybody said that it would be, the 101. Such a nice foundation brush. This will be perfect as well for like cream bronzer or cream contour, cream blush, anything, any kind of cream. And this little concealer brush as well, the A506, an absolute hit. I typically use a sponge for my concealer, but this is literally the perfect little kitten's paw brush. I'm going to keep using this for concealer because this is absolutely like the perfect shape. Like they nailed these brushes. So those are all a complete win in my books. Okay, so there you have it, my full face of Cle De Peau. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I'd love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.